recording, and we'll open it up to you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Exciting day today because this will be the first time that we go live. We've installed 95% of the package, so really a credit to the players and the staff for the massive amount of work that they've done, especially through these times in the last 7 or 8 months. Have done just a really good job. So practices are the first 2 are non, so it's kind of tag off, which you get a little bit of sense of more assignment alignment. The last 2 practices have been thud tempo, and it's been good. It's our inside run was pretty spirited the last couple of days, and that's a good sign from both sides of the football. But today will be the day. We'll find out. When just the kids are out in the field by themselves, and we just let them line up and go play, and find out who can tackle people, who can get off blocks, who can separate. Because sometimes it gets a little bit skewed when you're doing, thud period. So big day today. Excited about it. And ready to go this afternoon. So with that, open up for questions.
Okay, again, please raise your hand and we'll call on you for questions for either coach or the players. Mark Culkin, you're the first one up, so go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks, Coach, for joining us.
What's up, Mark?
I have a real quick question. Drake Jackson's being moved into linebacker role this year. What kind of conversation did you and Coach So'oto have about moving him back to the second level?
Yeah, well, it's not really going to be it's a hybrid position. So he's going to be more towards the line of scrimmage, have the ability. So it's really a 3-4 outside backer that has the ability to play at the line of scrimmage. So it's, there was times where they dropped him last year, and there was times where he pass rushed. And so you're going to see him do some different stuff out there. So when you think about the kind of the term linebacker, you're not necessarily when you're thinking about being off the football and playing that way. So it's, he's a guy that has flexibility, athletic ability, I think, to do some different things with. And obviously he's an elite pass rusher. So we got to be mindful of that.
Are you concerned at all, or has he shown flashes that he can do a zone coverage, dropping back into coverage?
Well, he has done it in practice. So, but once again, it just goes back to somebody's skill set. You just got to be mindful of the things that you want to do with him. If he ends up being an elite guy going after the quarterback, then you probably don't want to drop him too much. So there's certain things that you have to do with him, and and that will be in time. We're still installing the package itself, and just still. Because you got to remember, we didn't have a spring football. So you're kind of projecting based on what you've seen on film, and then working with the guys and what you believe they're going to be good at. But at the end of the day, we just have to get through the next couple of weeks, and then we'll start to pinpoint, really who we are and what our guys can do. And then, eventually when we line up and play our first game, we're doing the things that our guys can do, and making sure that if there's certain attributes that are elite, you make sure that you're doing those with the right people. So,
Ryan Carty, you're up.
Hey, Todd, thanks for doing this. I know you talked this summer about installing the defense over Zoom and the challenges of that. Now that you've been able to actually see the defense, how much do you feel like that install over the summer really took? And what do you still kind of have left that clearly you weren't able to practice or sort of institute over Zoom, other than aside from hitting, obviously?
Yeah. Honestly, I think with our ability to be able to utilize, 4 or 5 months to actually install over Zoom, obviously it's not one of those things where if you do something with people, and some guys visually it's hard for them to learn. They're more like walk and talk it. So that's the part that kind of stinks, because if you're in a meeting room, you can just go in the back of the meeting room and go let's walk through this thing. So some people learn different ways, but I think it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because if we'd have won out in the field after just a month or a month and a half, I don't know if these kids really knew us. You know what I'm saying? You come in and you get a little bit of a feel, but I think it's helped us because, you keep walking and talking. Eventually, when you keep talking about the same thing, it actually does process. And I just look at the last 4 days for us and saying man, these kids retained a decent amount of information. So, if we did it right on the spring, we'd have probably messed up a whole bunch of stuff. And then there may be a little bit of loss of confidence because we're trying to learn stuff, and having an offense that's already had a year under their belt. It could have been, I don't want to use the word bad, but it could have been a big learning curve for us. So having that extra time, regardless of not being able to walk and talk and physically do it, has been really, really good for us. I mean, I'm just telling you, like, when you're on there and you like, hey, we're going to go through day one install, and literally being able to do it like 7 or 8 times, it just keep pounding away and get into their brains. And I just judge it from our first day. We're pretty sharp, you know what I'm saying? So, if it was sloppy, now we're getting to the tail end of install, and there's a decent amount of defense in, and they still have retained quite a bit. But until you go against live, until you find out, I mean, remember, at the end of the day, you're not going to trick everybody in terms of your scheme. You're going to be based on how hard you run to the football, how you get off blocks, and how you tackle. And that's the part that I'm excited about today, because, we have not seen it. If you were talking to me after a spring football, I could be like perfectly legitimately honest with you and say, like, this is the stuff that we got to get done, but we haven't done it. So big day today. And I think the building's excited. I think everybody's excited, because it's like, this is it. This is your resume to show that you're going to run as hard as you can for your teammate, and you're going to hit somebody. And if you're not, and you'll be on the sidelines with us. So it's, that's I'm excited about it for today.
And for Marlon and Brandon, what was the most difficult part for you guys about learning a whole defensive scheme over Zoom? And how kind of surreal was it to finally actually see the defense lined up next to each other?
Oh, you want to go first, Marlon, or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like Coach said, different people learn different ways. And he said, some people are hands-on learners, and I feel like I'm more of a hands-on learner. So I'm starting to see the defense more and starting to run through it. I'm definitely getting the plays down better, and it's helping me a lot more than just seeing it through Zoom. But now seeing the defense and, linking plays and assignments, I think it's a lot easier now for me.
Yeah, I could just go off of what Brandon said. Like, it was like, I'm more of a hands-on learner too, but it was good to go over Zoom, because we like meet every day and just go over the plays constantly. So that was good to do. And then once we got on the field, it was pretty easy to actually do, like, go over our steps and plays and all that. So it was good.
Okay, we'll go to shotgun.
Hey, Todd, what's kind of your excitement level today? You've already talked about it a little bit, being in full pads. How much can you really learn prior to being in full pads?
Well, to me, it's just assignment. It's like, how much do you care? You go out there and you don't know exactly what you're doing after meeting with somebody for 7 months. I mean, that pretty much explains how much you care. So that's important to me, because, the more you put in, the more you get out. But at the end of the day, it's, you can line up perfect, you can look pretty and do all that stuff. But, if you don't run to the football and you don't hit somebody, I mean, that's a game of football. So, I mean, there's no way around it. So that's what we're going to find out, because some people, they might run 4.6, but when somebody's trying to hit them, they run 4.9. And then some guys might run 4.9, and when they're going to hit somebody, they run 4.6. And that's the beauty of this game is, it's contact, and it's about having a certain type of mindset when you walk onto the field. And now we have the ability to do it. It's one thing to talk about it. And like I said beforehand, without spring football, you don't know, because that's the stuff that you really train. You train your culture, you train all the things that go into really what the game is about, especially defensively. But to be able to have a day today, to be able to do it is exciting to me, because this is where the separation begins. And I'm hopefully that, everybody's out there and, and and everybody's doing it, but normal cases, that's not going to be the reality of it. So it's, and then we're gonna make decisions based on that. That's, it's one thing to have the tools to be able to do it. It's another thing to really strain to the football and want to run through somebody. I mean, that's what this game's about.
What have you kind of taken away from watching college football and being free on a Saturday, seeing some of the defensive lapses and stuff? Is there any extra emphasis that you try to put on something after having watched some games played this season?
I just think there's a trend probably a little bit more towards pace in certain leagues that probably haven't seen it. We saw a little bit of SEC doing some different stuff where, probably they're more accustomed to some more traditional looks. So I think you're starting to see that a little bit more up-tempo stuff. And I've seen that through my whole career. The last league I was in the same way. And, this league will be very similar. But, it's if there's anything to it, is probably be that you got to be mindful of the, how much time you have and the tackling part of it. So there, obviously when people get you in space and you really don't have a spring football to go through completely of tackling and you're trying to be smart going into a season, it's the same thing. So you see a decent amount of missed tackles too. But I just think college football is, really starting to change, and it's becoming a little bit different in some leagues that were a little bit more traditional. I just bring up the SEC because it's, they're probably not seeing a ton of pace, a lot of spread, getting the ball in and out of hands. They're probably more accustomed to seeing line up and smash the ball down somebody, get 3 yards, go in the huddle and smash it again and maybe throw some play action. So that's probably one of the reasons.
Okay, we'll go to Adam Grossbard now.
Todd, you said the situation, has some blessings in disguise, but, back in March, what was your initial reaction to realizing you weren't going to have a spring to install your defense? And is there any element of surprise that you're sitting here telling us that it's 95% installed with only, a handful of actual practices?
I was disappointed. I think the guys were disappointed because, at the end of the day, you want to go out in the field and compete. But I always try to think of the positives of it, and it's just like, okay, at the end of the day, if we went out there and we spent, 5 to 6 days just trying to get lined up and trying to figure out the things that we're doing, it's, so I tried my best to be positive about it. So I looked at it, and we can't control it. So let's make the best out of it. And let's try to make it work and do it. And we do have 95% of the stuff that's in, we have probably about 5, maybe 6 installs that we do. Okay. And we're at 5 right now. And there'll be a handful of things that are in this package that are more specifically game plan items that we would pull out and say, hey, listen, we're going to do this versus this team. But with the really the meat and potatoes of this package is done. So and you like to try to get that done before the first day of live football, because you don't want to have to install stuff if you're asking somebody to run as fast as they can and not think and just put your foot in the ground and run and hit. So like I said before, and a credit to the players, and a credit to the coaches for, getting this stuff installed and taught. And like, Marlon and Brandon said, it's like, it takes some time to physically go through it. It's one thing to take mental reps and it's other thing to do physical reps, but, they've done a great job.
And Brandon, the big opt-out news for the team was Jay Tufele opting for the draft. Like, what type of opportunity does that provide for you going into your senior year?
Jay and Marlon, they're like my brothers. They're, they're 2 of my closest friends that I made in college. And, seeing him leave, it definitely, I'm happy for him. Don't get me wrong, but, seeing him leave, it left a big void in our defensive line experience wise. And, I just feel like now that burden is on me, being, the veteran, the senior of the group. And I just feel like I have more accountability to my teammates now to fill that void that Jay left.
Thanks, Brandon. Okay, we'll go to Ryan Young.
Todd, as you've gotten to know your personnel these last 7 months, how much have you adjusted or tweaked your defense from what you ran at Texas to what you're going to be running this season?
It'll be similar. Without getting into the nuts and bolts, because I would like Arizona State to work a little bit. So
Sure.
it's modified. I had a pretty good sense of who could do what. You know what I'm saying? Like, because, those guys, I always think it's important not to judge guys, but to take a look at their skill set, before you get to a place, especially when you get to a place, to watch the guys last year, see what they're doing. So it's kind of a modification of some of the stuff that I believe they're good at, and try to put them in spots. And we've been pretty fortunate. There's only been a handful of maneuvers that we've made that we thought coming in that they would be good fits. And then we kind of go through the first 4 days of practice and say, you know what, maybe we need to put this guy here. But I think we had a pretty good sense of what these guys can do and their skill sets. And, because we study them quite a bit. And so far, it really hasn't been any major movements off of what we thought they were coming in before we even put a ball down, to where we're at right now.
And then what were your thoughts on losing Jay, and what does that mean for Marlon and Brandon and their roles?
Yeah, it's Jay's a big time ball player, man. And we wish him the best of luck. And we know he's going to go high in the draft. It's one of those situations that it's understandable, and these guys are going to, just like Brandon said, they're going to pick up the slack. There's no doubt about it. But, it's a collective group. Once again, it's these guys will be rolled in and out. Defensive line position isn't one where you're going to see somebody on the field for 70 or 80 plays. Collectively as a group, you're looking at those guys, especially in the 40s to 50s, depending on how games go. So they understand that. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And, and they'll get it done.
Okay, we'll go now to Ryan Abraham.
Morning, Todd. You come from a program, highly recruited athletes at Texas, same sort of thing at USC. Just from the first four, have you seen any athletes that kind of stood out to you, maybe surprised you a little bit?
Oh, I think, we knew coming into it, just watching them on film and their skill sets, but it's, I don't want to get specific with guys because, you get into it and it's, like I said, look, get past today. When we get past today, I'll answer that question probably a little bit better because they all look good. You know what I'm saying? And it's running around in shorts and T-shirts and tagging people off. Everybody looks the part. But to kind of get back to your question with it, I mean, there are some guys, but it's like anything else. When you're learning a system, sometimes, they might not look as athletic because they're a little bit unsure. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to hold judgment on that for right now until we get through the contact. Once, give me that question 4 or 5 days from now, and I'll be able to tell you like, hey, this guy's a real dude because, he can do it and he runs just as fast when we ask him to hit somebody that he does when we ask him to tag him off.
All right, and then Marlon, with everyone talk about Jay opting out, how different has practice been for you with him not there?
It hasn't been too different. I mean, Jay is a big loss for us, but it just means other guys got to step in, and we have to come together as a group and just keep working to, do what Jay did when he was here. But I'm totally happy for Jay on his decision. I mean, I wish he was still here, but he had to make his move, and I'm totally happy for him.
Antonio?
Todd, this is only your fifth or sixth practice with a brand new coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball, basically. What's it been like the past couple of months, building a chemistry with them and, getting on the same page?
Oh, it's been great. I knew when we started to, myself and Coach Helton start putting this crew together is that we kind of had to think the same. You wanted smart, tough guys, and that was really important so that it worked because you can have a very talented staff, but if they're not cohesive, if they're not preaching the same thing, I thought it was pretty evident because when we first got here, we all got interviewed, and we didn't like sit in a room and talk about like, hey, we're going to run to the football, we're going to be physical and do all that stuff. And everybody kind of said the same thing, like kind of parroted each other. And I just thought it was pretty cool that, you know, you have 4 different guys coming, you know, Craig and I have worked together, but, you know, have Dante and Vic that are coming from different situations, but we really think one and the same. And it's really cool. So as we put it together, we want to make sure that we had the right personalities in, you know, what we thought was best for the guys, you know, that's number one. And then, you know, obviously from a recruiting standpoint, you want to have guys that really got after it that way. But, you know, it's the same thing with the players. You meet a lot of the time, you know, and you get coordinated, get on the same page. And, but at the end of the day, it's all about the message that we're all sending to the players of, you know, kind of the demands of winning a championship. At the end of the day, that's all we're trying to instill in our players. So it's, you know, it's been really good.
Okay, let's jump down to Eric McKinney.
Hey, Todd. One of the common themes, I guess, so far of kind of your stops has been a real quick improvement in play on that defensive side. What is it about your scheme or maybe the situations that you've come into that have allowed that to happen?
I think a little bit of the scheme part of it, but probably more or less just kind of a little bit of a kickstart. You know, you get into a place and there's, you know, I'm really into probably more of the culture stuff and more into just this, you know, the running to the football and being physical and having confidence and doing all that stuff. So I think it's probably more the internal than it actually is the scheme. So, you know, a lot of the places just need a little bit of a, you know, just a little bit of a kickstart. So it's, and these guys are good. And we're trying to get to the point where it's, you know, we're installing stuff. And now that the install is done is just to go out there and play free. So I think sometimes you can, as a coordinator, I've done this a long time, you know, and I think sometimes you get really conscientious guys, really good kids, which we have here. Okay. And they want to do well, but sometimes it's like they want to please so much. It's like, don't worry about that, man. Just go out there and just put your foot in the ground and run as hard as you can and go hit somebody. So I think that's what trying to, you know, the places I've been coming into is just to try to free these guys up. It's okay to fail, man. That's what practice is about. Fail big. You know, I'm going to fail big at times, but I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to go to the next play and I'm going to figure things out and I'm just going to keep moving forward. So I think to answer your question, it's more of the internal training than it is the actual scheme.
And then Marlon, what went into the number change?
I've been wearing 51 since I was in high school. And I don't know, I guess after this quarantine, I just didn't want to wear the number anymore. And just 93 was available for like D lineman numbers. So I just took that one.
Okay, we have time just for a couple more questions. Let's jump to Skylar.
Hey everyone, Skylar Treppel here from USC Annenberg Media, graduate student. Todd, I really like the positive mindset that you bring to this team. And in such an unprecedented year and time where, you know, people are going to be watching college football for hope, inspiration during these quarantine times, most people might get down about it, but I know that that's not the mentality of this team. So I'd love to hear, how do you motivate the players or see this as a golden opportunity to do something really special that maybe isn't done in other seasons or that makes this season more special?
Well, I think anytime you go through something like this, me personally, the reason why I love football, you know, growing up, either playing it or coaching with it, is just to be with my teammates and to go out there and do things that they're kind of against human nature, to be honest with you. You know, we went out yesterday and it was 90 degrees outside. We went 2 hours and ran around and hit people. But at the end of the day, you do it for the people in that room. And that's the really cool part about this is it's so unique of a sport that the physical demands, the mental demands, not letting each other down. That's why I come to work every day. And I'm sure if you ask those 2 guys on the Zoom right now, it's the reason why they strain and they do the things that they do is for a greater purpose than themselves. And when you go through something, you're kind of like, hey, listen, we're kind of on our own right now, and we're not even a thought. And then to be able to get turned back on, to be able to do it. And I think that was the part I heard Coach Helton talk about it when they shut us down off of spring football. It's like, what do we do now? Do we pout, or we just go back to our training and just wait for our orders to come back? And that's what we did. And I thought the guys were really professional about that, because it'd been easy to get lax and just say, this thing ain't going down. So, why are we doing all this stuff? But they didn't. They were detailed. And so when we got the call, but I'm telling you, when we walked on that field together, like physically with like football helmets on, and we went through flex and stretch, and they put a ball down, I'm telling you, we're like 8-year-old kids in our first, padded practice. It's really cool. And it's, but that shows you what kind of people that we have in this program. But at the end of the day, you do it because you really care about the people around you. You're not selfish and, just worried about yourself, and people are counting on you, to do things, to study, to know what you're doing. And like I said about today's practice, this will be even the better part of it, is whether you're willing to sacrifice, when the ball goes out in the perimeter. Is Marlon, Brandon gonna turn and just sprint as hard as they can because their brother needs them out there to help somebody get them on the ground, and and how physical are we going to be?
Okay, we've got 1 minute for a quick question and answer. We'll go to Ryan Young. Then the coach has to go to a meeting, and the players have classes.
Yeah, just a real quick, Todd, your overview of the linebacker position and with the injuries there, is it kind of between Kanai and Raylan now for that max spot?
Yeah, they're working there. We're going to try to keep EA as much as we can in the position that he played a little bit last year. But we're going to work some guys around without getting real specific on it. Those 3 guys have stood out. I mean, they've got some pelts on the wall, so they've have experience. And I will say this about all 3 of them: they're extremely sharp kids. I'm telling you, we've have really strained them mentally, and all those guys have picked up this package really, really well. So I'm excited to see how that shakes out. Who ends up being the guys, and but they're all going to play. So they do some really good things. But like, once again, we'll see after today's practice exactly where we're at.
Thank you.
Okay, Todd, Brandon, Marlon, thank you guys very much for joining us. We'll let you go now. To reminder to everybody else, 8 a.m. tomorrow, we'll have Coach Helton on. Until then, have a great day. We'll put this recording up on our media center shortly. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.